Looks like it's going.
It's going? Grand. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for making time, especially when I know that you're all so busy. So welcome to this briefing. We are here to learn more about what the Land Advice Network is and how we see its role as part of the Making Space for Nature project. I just want to cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. As I said, this meeting is going to be recorded. In terms of questions, if you could please put any questions you have in the chat. And if you see a question that you think is one you'd also like answered, please like it so that we can understand which are the ones that are of most importance to you. Obviously, we'll try and answer as many questions as we can today, but we're also developing an FAQ, and so we will use them to help us populate that. So without further ado, I just want to lay out the agenda. So I'm going to do some introductions to the wider project team, and we're also very glad to have some members of the delivery board who are able to join us here today. So I shall introduce them. And then we're going to have an overview from Liz of the project. I know that many of you were at the launch, but not everybody on this call was at the launch. So if you can just bear with us just to give a little bit of an overview. And then to the meat of the discussion, I'm going to explain what is our strategy for landowner engagement and how we see the Land Advice Network working. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussions. So this is the overall project team. So we at Kent County Council are the responsible authority. It is our responsibility to develop the local nature recovery strategy for Kent and Medway. And we have this team which has been created for this purpose. And we are supported by Natural England and senior advisor Karen Rigby-Foe, who in turn works with the other arm's length bodies such as the Forestry Commission and the Environment Agency. So I think you'll be potentially chatting with during the course of the project with other members of the team. So whilst they're here, I just thought it'd be a good opportunity if they could introduce themselves. So if I just start at the top here, perhaps Chris, could you say hello?
Yeah, hello there. So I work in the Natural Environment Post team at KCC. I coordinate Kent Nature Partnership, supporting Matthew Belfer, who's the chair, and he's with us today as well. In addition, I'm now the Making Space for Nature project officer, working with Liz Milne, who's the project manager, and Rachel, who's the support officer, and the rest of the team. So aside from providing input across the project, I'll be running a stakeholder engagement technical advisory group for this project, and the utilities and transport stakeholder engagement groups, but those are being set up at the moment.
Thanks, Chris. Rachel?
Hi, yes, I'm Rachel. I'm the support officer on the Making Space for Nature team, so working closely with Chris on the comms and engagement and supporting all the other officers in their roles, however they might need me.
Thank you. I think we've also got Louise on the call.
She definitely was there.
She was there?
Yes.
She might be struggling to come off mute.
Yeah. Oh, I'm on mute, sorry. Hi. Hi, I'm Louise. I'm the Coastal and Marine Officer. Again, I'm part of the Making Space for Nature team. So I'll be looking at everything around Kent's coastline. So I'm sure I've probably spoken to a few of you already who are on this call. And if I haven't and you've got some coastal sites, I might be in touch. So lovely to meet you all virtually.
Thanks, Louise. So then we've got, as I mentioned, each county has a dedicated Natural England advisor, and Karen is our advisor, and I think you're on the call. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. As Alexa said, there's 48 of us in England that are working together to make sure that we've got coordination across all the boundaries for the LNRS, and I'm here to support the Making Space for Nature team. I'm also, Natural England are also a supporting authority. They're the only ALB that is. So that's quite a new thing since March. and I also do various projects in Kent, including the Supranational Nature Reserve.
Super, thanks, Karen. And I think we've got Will on the line.
Yeah, afternoon, everyone. I'm Will Maiden. I work for the Forestry Commission as a nature recovery advisor. So anything to do with trees or woodland management or creating new woodlands, I'll be feeding in to the team that way.
Super. And and Sophie, have we got Sophie online?
Yes, hello. I'm Sophie Page. I work for the Environment Agency as the single point of contact for local nature recovery strategies for Kent and South London area. So I'm managing our engagement with this local nature recovery strategy and managing our coordination of that across our business and looking at the impact on freshwater and coastal fluvial environments.
Super. And I think I have potentially omitted someone who may be on the call as well, who've been joining us on secondment from South East Rivers Trust is Catty Bauer. And Catty, I think I saw you join.
Hello. Yes, sorry, I was a little bit late. Hi, everyone. I'm Catty. I'm Senior Natural Capital Officer at the South East Rivers Trust and hopefully starting my secondment to the Making Space for Nature project soon as the Rivers and Freshwater Officer. So yeah, specifically focused on that element of the strategy. Super.
Thanks very much, Catty. So then, of course, Liz, who many of you will know, has been involved with this project. So I'm just going to ask her to lay out a little bit more about what is involved in the Making Space for Nature project and talk us through that, and then give you just an understanding of the governance and the timeframes as well. So if I could hand over to you, Liz, and if you just let me know when you want me to move the slide.
Fabulous. Thank you, Alexa. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Liz Milne. I manage the Natural Environment Coast team at Kent County Council. And for the purposes of the Making Space for Nature project, I'll also be acting as project manager. Excuse me, my voice is disappearing fast. So hopefully I will not be too squeaky through the course of this quick introduction. So first of all, I just wanted to give you an overview of what Making Space for Nature will develop. So Making Space for Nature is the project under which we are developing the local nature recovery strategy for Kent and Medway. And Kent County Council is acting as responsible authority for both the administrative areas of Kent and Medway. So it's a geographic Kent area as opposed to administrative. And effectively, the local nature recovery strategy will set out a spatially framed strategy for nature, and the purpose of which will focus the action that will be taken over the next sort of few years or so, focusing that action to where it's most needed and where it will deliver the greatest benefits. And those are benefits for both nature, but also ourselves as well as people who depend on the ecosystem services that a healthy natural environment delivers. The LNRS will also establish a framework, and that framework will provide a basis for joined up action. And importantly, that framework is going to be developed with those that will be instrumental in its delivery. So that's one of the reasons why we're really keen to engage with the county's landowners, farmers, managers, etc., because you know, as custodians of the county's land, or much of the county's land, you're a real critical part of that delivery framework. The strategy will also set out what our agreed priorities are in terms of what we want to see in terms of nature recovery, and in association with that, we'll also set out what measures might be used to deliver that. So measures being actions, for want of a better word. And consequently, we'll have a shared vision for nature recovery, and also not just for nature recovery, but also importantly for the use of nature-based solutions in the county. So one of the things that is really keen, DEFRA really keen to see, is that the LNRS will not only be looking at how we can deliver better outcomes for nature, but also how we can also ensure that we deliver wider environmental benefits in respect of things like water quality, health and well-being benefits, and floodwater management, for example. And finally, one of the things that we're also really keen to stress is we want the strategy to be ambitious, but at the same time we need to make sure it's realistic, which is why we want to develop it with all the stakeholders to make sure that what is being set out will be deliverable, but also that deliverability is also linked to not just how it might be delivered, but also the finance that will underpin it. So as a result of the LNRS, we hope to see that Kent and Medway has a network of wildlife-rich places, that our natural environment is restored and healthy and providing a coherent and resilient ecological network. And consequently, we have a county that's thriving with wildlife and plants. And also a natural landscape that inspires engagement, and that in itself underpins and assists good health and well-being, and also supports the economy in terms of the way in which we might use the land for economic gains. And also finally, as I mentioned, in terms of wider environmental benefits, that nature is helping us to find solutions to some of our societal challenges that we face at the moment. Next slide, please, Alexa. So what will the local nature recovery strategy do? So I think, as well as dwelling on what it will do, I'm going to also look at what it won't, because I think it's some of the what it won't do is bits that are concerning some of our stakeholders currently. So we will map the strategy, will map where we would like to see our priorities delivered, but it will not draw localised, detailed or definitive boundaries. So instead it will identify areas of the county where the creation or improvement of habitat is likely to provide the greatest benefit across the county. And also alongside that, I talked about that the strategy will identify potential measures. It will not dictate actions on land or instruct their implementation. It will simply say what potential measures would be required to support the delivery of the priority, but in no way will it suggest that that action must be taken. But obviously we hope that having developed those potential measures with the stakeholders across the county, that they firstly won't come as a surprise, and secondly will actually have the support of the delivery partners that we need to take them forward. Consequently, it's not going to force landowners or managers or farmers to make any changes to the manner in which they work on the land, but it will inform opportunities for funding and investment. And the government have said that that's what they intend to use to encourage participation in private landowners getting engaged in nature recovery. Importantly, as you may have now got the impression, we are looking to actively seek inputs from all stakeholders, and in particular farmers, landowners and managers. And so this the map and the priorities will not be developed without your input. And also there will be a full public consultation. So we do intend to spend the next year doing a lot of stakeholder engagement, but that will not be in lieu of public consultation. That will then be done in advance of public consultation. So we hope that by having done intensive stakeholder engagement, that the public consultation won't throw up any surprises. But there will be further opportunity, and we will ensure we will listen to all views in terms of the potential measures that are proposed and the areas of land that are suggested as having potential importance for biodiversity into the future. And finally, the other thing about the LNRS is we will not finish in 25. So whilst the development of the LNRS, we intend it to be completed by sort of late spring 25. That is not the end. In fact, that's just the beginning. And it's from there that we will look to be implementing that work. And that will very much be reliant on yourselves as delivery partners. And we as responsible authority will be responsible for reviewing, revising and republishing the strategy on a regular cycle to make sure that it's fit for purpose and it is delivering nature recovery as we wish it to. Next slide, please, Alexa. Excuse me, sorry. So the development of the strategy follows statutory guidance and it must meet specific regulations that are set out for the local nature recovery strategy. And we also have subsequent advisory guidance as well being released across the next few months from DEFRA to assist us in some of the specifics of the work. But the work will be locally led, and we will have some autonomy in the way in which we do it. And very importantly, it will be evidence based and most importantly, collaboratively. As I mentioned, KCC are the responsible authority, but we are not solely responsible for delivering the strategy. It will be a shared effort with partners from across the private, the public and the voluntary sectors, and we hope everyone will be prepared to play a role. So the development effectively starts with looking at what we already have and mapping areas that are of particular importance, and then we will start to look at exactly what it is that we want to do. So we first start by looking at what we've done in terms of where nature recovery action has already been taken, and also what we already have in terms of what we know of the area, where we know we have value and assets in terms of our biodiversity, but also what the pressures might be, and also what opportunities there may be for nature recovery. Once we have a good idea of that, and that should be finished hopefully by the end of this year, we will then really get into the crux of the work, which will be looking at what those priorities for nature recovery might be, and then mapping where those priorities would best be delivered in order to maximise the greatest benefits for both nature and also wider environmental benefits. And that map and that statement of biodiversity priorities comes together and provides us with the local nature recovery strategy. Next slide, please, Alexa. So effectively, the work, like I say, will conclude sort of spring 25. And at the moment, we are setting up the various mechanisms and measures that we need to deliver the project. So this network being one of them. And we're also currently pulling together the information that we need to inform our strategy area description, and also map that areas of existing or particular importance for biodiversity, areas that we already know. We're also will be launching later this year a tool that will hopefully allow all partners to log what existing projects and actions they already have ongoing, so we can better understand the basis of the nature recovery work we want to take forward. So from next year, we really start the work. The first half of 24 will be looking at defining the priorities, and the second half of 24 will be looking to map where those priorities should be based. And then following on from that, we then go through a period of consultation and finally publication in May, we hope. I should say that next year, the developing the priorities and mapping where they should be, that's where our real stakeholder engagement will come into play. So there's a lot of work that will take place next year that we hope will be in partnership with many stakeholders across the county. Next slide, please, Alexa. So I think this is the final one from me. So just to explain how the project's being managed, excuse me. So we have offering oversight and governance of the project, a project board, and that's largely made up of political and strategic leaders in the county, and they are making sure that we are delivering a strategy that adheres to the regulations, and also that we are doing it in a befitting way that includes all relevant stakeholders and ensures the widest engagement of those. Sitting underneath that are two steering groups. The first is the Supporting Authorities Group. So the Supporting Authorities Group is effectively made up of all the counties' local planning authorities, and also, as Karen said, Natural England. And the supporting authorities are really critical to this process, because one of the ways in which the LNRS will be delivered is through planning. So we want to make sure that we have their sort of buy-in from the start to what we're trying to achieve through the strategy. And then the other side of the steering group is a delivery group, which is made up of a number of different sector representatives, and that's providing us with the real sort of steer, oversight and guidance that's required to deliver a project of this size. Advising the steering group and ourselves are a number of technical advisory groups, and those are groups made up of partners from across the county who come with particular expertise or knowledge of a particular area of work that's required. So that's the groups that are highlighted in green on the slide. And then finally, sitting below that are the stakeholder engagement groups. So these are just sort of theoretical groups that we've just used to group our stakeholders. They're not actual groups that are going to come into being unless we decide to actually particularly focus on a particular subject as we go forward with our the development of the strategy. And as you can see, we're covering a very broad range of stakeholders, because obviously a healthy and natural environment is either affected by or affected on many different sectors, and we need everyone to be involved to make sure that this strategy succeeds. So I think that's everything from me, Alexa, unless I've missed anything out.
No, that's
Fabulous.
super. Thanks very much, Liz. As Liz said, this is the governance structure, and we're joined today on the call by a number of members from the board. So if you could perhaps just say hello and anything you'd like to about your involvement with the project. I think we have Matthew Balfour on the call.
Thank you, Alexa. Yes, I chair the Kent Nature Partnership. I should also add I chair the Kent Rural Partnership, which is the more commercial side of matters, rural. And I also sit on the South East Local Nature Partnership, which covers all the counties around London, basically. The Nature Partnership is hugely involved in this, and members of it will be sitting on various on the various bodies that Liz has so aptly outlined. But we also come together to discuss other matters over the period. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And I think that's one of the great benefits that we have in Kent, that we have had such a strong nature partnership, and we can build on that. So it gives us a great platform. So thank you. We've also obviously wanting to make sure that landowners and farmers are represented in the governance. And so on the board we have representatives from the CLA and from the NFU. So I think we've got Charles on the call. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello,
Alexa.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm representing CLA, Country Land and Business Association. I chair the committee in Kent. I'm also a trustee of Kent Wildlife Trust. And I think this is really well timed. Last week I went to a meeting on the new sustainable farming incentive, which now really is starting to get into gear. There's 23 separate measures for farmers to implement next year. And it's really all come together now. And what came out of that meeting was food production was part of the initiative, but also managing for nature. So I think you're going to get a lot of farmers coming on board. So this is a great way of helping them work out what's going to be the best options for them in their area. So yeah, really up for this.
Super. Thank you, Charles. And Claire Eckley, I think that's where you joined as well.
Hi there, I'm Claire Eckley. I'm chair of Kent National Farmers Union. I was really keen to be involved. We're part of our modern farmer cluster, and we're also a nature friendly farmer. So nature is going to be a big income generator, hopefully, for some farmers in the future. And I just want to make sure farmers at least know about it and then can choose whether to be involved or not. So really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Super, thank you very much. So moving on to why we're creating a land advice network. I believe that when Liz and colleagues were discussing how to establish this Making Space for Nature team, she met with many advisors across Kent. And out of that came the recommendation to create my role, the landowner officer, but also to create this land advice network, because we have more landowners, farmers and land managers, I believe, than probably any other county in England. So, of course, we wanted to find a way to reach out to as many people as possible. So this is why we're creating the Land Advice Network. As Liz has explained, the LNRS is a new way of doing things in the sense that it's to be locally led and collaboratively developed. So that means working in new ways and establishing new networks, because obviously we're not going to be able to achieve the scale of nature recovery that we would like to across the county, unless we are able to engage and involve landowners, farmers and managers. But as Charles and Claire have alluded to as well, the LNRS it was also going to link to future funding. We've already had the guidance on how it will relate to BNG. This is through the strategic multiplier in the BNG calculation, which is influenced by whether or not the relevant habitat lies within the LNRS. And we also anticipate that it will link to elms. So this is going to have really significant importance for landowners and farmers. And we want to be in a situation where, through your help and support and through all the engagement that we do through the project, that everybody who is in a position of owning land or managing land across Kent understands what the local nature recovery strategy is and what it means for them, and they understand how to take part in developing the strategy. So we see that the role of the Land Advice Network would be to enable this engagement with as many landowners, farmers and land managers as possible, because you have those trusted relationships. So in as much as I can explain to landowners what the LNRS is, they are always going to want to go away and talk about it with you. What are the implications for future land management? What are the implications for values for the next generation? These are things that they're going to want to get advice on. And we really want this to be a two-way communication mechanism, because you will also help us to make sure that the way that we engage and communicate with landowners and farmers is effective. We know that you and they are very busy and short of time, and they probably have a lot of people clamoring for their attention. So we want to make sure that we understand the best way to do it, what will be most effective. And therefore, we would like to be able to equip you with the knowledge and understanding about what is involved in the LNRS, so that you can help us to engage them and promote what is happening, and then also to support them to give feedback. More generally, we see this as an opportunity for knowledge sharing across the advisory community in Kent. So obviously we have a project team for Making Space for Nature. We have a defined period of time in which we'll exist. But as Liz mentioned, the LNRS is an iterative process. So once we've had this first LNRS, the Secretary of State can ask for revision to the LNRS between 3 to 10 years sort of window. So this will be an iterative process, of course, because in order to achieve nature recovery, this is going to take years. So this is just a starting point. So this community and this network, we believe, could exist into the future, so that we've really got this capacity to support the LNRS going on into the future, and really have that, keep all of the knowledge that we will acquire during this section of the project, and use that as we go forward. I think it's also an opportunity to develop new relationships across the county, understand how different advisors are working, and again, hopefully work together as effectively as possible, avoid duplication, perhaps hold meetings together, which I know many of you will already do, to limit the number of meetings that farmers or landowners have to attend. So we see this as would be the role of the network. So who do we have here today? We have an agronomist. We don't yet have an accountant. I think we probably need some accountants. But we have representatives from catchment partnerships, the catchment sensitive farming team, that's the DEFRA team, Forestry Commission. We have ecologists, we have forestry advisors, we have some land agents and some lawyers. We've got independent advisors who work with farmers, who are perhaps farmer facilitators or ecologists providing advice to farmers. We have a range of NGOs, again, potentially facilitating clusters or being involved with other landscape scale projects. We've got representatives from water companies and representatives from community wildlife groups. So this is just a start. I'm sure there are organisations and people undoubtedly that I have missed, but the idea is that we, through you, and we have a sort of snowball effect. We gather other advisors into this network so that we can all sort of understand what is happening and work together. So I just want to give you a quick overview of all of the ways in which we are engaging across the landowner farmer stakeholder group. We've mentioned that there's a board where the CLA and the NFU are represented. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. Similarly, the delivery group has officers from the NFU and the CLA. We are also going to be creating these stakeholder groups, which will bring together landowners. We are attending meetings that are already taking place, for example, farmer clusters or catchment partnerships. We are working obviously with all the government land advisors, NGO land advisors, farmer cluster facilitators, land agents and consultancies, everybody who has networks already. And we'll also be appearing at events, ploughing matches, conferences or agricultural shows. I met some of you the other week at the National Fruit Show. So we're really doing everything we can to raise awareness at this stage of this project and to engage people. And really it's essential, because on my own there is no way that I'm going to be able to reach. I do not have the network, and I would not have the trusted relationships that you have built up over years. So we see this as being a kind of multiplier effect, that through you we can expand the network, we can reach as many landowners, farmers and land managers as possible. So just to give you a flavour of what it is we would be looking to engage with the stakeholder group about. And for those of you who are thinking, oh no, not another strategy, in actual fact, this project moves along very quickly, and there are we'll be looking for inputs right from the beginning. So it's not a project that you sort of hear about today and then 6 months later we come back round the houses. We will be looking to engage with landowners and start, getting them involved really, from now onwards. So Liz has already mentioned that we'll be looking at local habitat maps, areas of particular local importance. So we'll be looking to understand that, for example. And then we'll be looking to start capturing existing projects and actions for nature recovery. There is an app being developed to support this, and wherever possible, we will be using surveys or workshops or apps to help collect the data. But I think the real challenge is to get people aware of this and to a point where they are sufficiently interested to participate. So those are things that will be beginning to happen over the next few months. I see that as being a constant process of engagement. And then we've also mentioned that there will be a formal consultation. So again, as we get towards the end, it will be important that landowners, farmers feedback on how this strategy is working for them. So that's the sort of things that we'd be looking at. And obviously I'm going to have this as a wider discussion today. But in terms of initial proposals, I'm proposing that we establish this land advice network as a kind of regular meetup. I'm proposing that we have an in-person meeting in December, just because it's nice to at least have met in real life before you start mainly dealing online. But that otherwise we would mainly meet online, and we can discuss whether it's fortnightly or monthly and what sort of time would suit. I'm aware we may have Carol Ford on the line, who I believe runs a task force and that you get together regularly, and so it'd be interesting to hear about that experience. But similarly, I'm sure many of you be involved in other groups and have some ideas about what works well, but I'm thinking basically of perhaps an hour less if I can manage it, but a regular meeting where I would give you a briefing on, you know, where are we in the project, what is it that we're looking to make sure landowners and farmers are aware of, how is it going, are there any issues, depending on what stage we're on, so that we can support you and respond to those, and give you previews of whatever upcoming requests we may have, previews of surveys or apps. So for example, a preview of the app that we're going to use in order to map existing activity. So really making sure that you know what is happening, and you are able to support those that you work with or advise on, you know, on how to get involved. And to that extent, we can provide content for newsletters, short talking points. Someone said to me, Alexa, I've got 5 minutes to talk to a farmer. What is it you want me to say? So I know we need to be very specific as to what is our ask. Slide presentations, whatever it is that you think will be helpful. So that's the sort of idea that I have. And as I say, sort of something fortnightly, monthly, we can flex it. I'm sure there'll be periods where we would maybe need to meet more frequently than others. So just one other thought, we are trying to create sort of this land advice network, which is as extensive as possible. But I think that what we will also need is what's been referred to earlier as a technical advice group or a working group. That would be a smaller number of people who would help me to review documentation or any tools or whatever materials it is we're providing. Just because I think you will be able to give good feedback, make sure that whatever I bring forward to the Land Advice Network is, you know, going to hit the mark. So I would be looking for a smaller group to help me, and that would again be meeting probably fortnightly for an hour or so to help give me input. So that's been a very quick canter through, and we've not had many photographs in that presentation. So I just wanted to close with this. As we've explained, you know, the LNRS and the Making Space for Nature project, this is a whole new way of doing things, and it's a very tight timetable. The objective of the LNRS is that it should be both practical and deliverable and ambitious. Those are all very big things to achieve. But I think it is also a fantastic opportunity to be involved in a project which I really believe is very important for Kent and could make a lasting difference to nature recovery. That's why I took this role, and I find that's why I think you know, it's going to be an incredibly interesting and busy 20 months. But I would really believe that if with your help we can really reach as many landowners, farmers and land managers as possible, then that will help us to be successful in its development. So there we are. I'm going to close here and get out of here so we can move on to a bit more of a discussion, and I shall stop sharing so that I can see everybody there. And to see if we have any questions in the chat. Righty-ho. Rachel, have you had a chance to have a look at the questions, or shall I just work my way through them?
There are lots. One at the top that had 2 likes on it was actually the same question asked twice, which was essentially what existing data is informing the mapping. But there's been quite a chat going on underneath, so in amongst all that may have been answered.
Okay, have we got Liz? I think you're still with us. I don't know if you would like to take a stab at answering that.
I can do, yeah. So I've been trying to answer the questions as quickly as I can, but clearly do not type quick enough. They're coming in too thick and fast. So so very briefly, so someone commented about whether we would be using some of the funding to update the Kent Habitat Survey. I would love to update the Kent Habitat Survey, but the reality is that was a £1 million 4-year project, and we have a fraction of that budget, and we need to deliver it in the next year and a half. And also DEFRA have provided us with a national data set that we will supplement at the local level. So the intention is to use the national data set, and I know there will be questions about the fact that obviously the Kent Habitat Survey is now over 10 years old, but actually that still remains a pretty good data set when compared to other counties. So we're quite fortunate in that regards. But we will be considering if there is other ways of updating or refreshing some of the data, or potentially when we start mapping, whether we need to do any sort of I hesitate to use the word ground truthing, because I'm not suggesting we're going to send out surveyors, but sense checking, if you like, of where we are prioritising, where we are placing priorities based on an assumption made about the existing habitat. We will discuss whether there needs to be any sort of consideration about whether that knowledge is in fact correct. So we do have a data evidence and mapping technical advisory group, and invites were sent out, initial invites were sent out to that a few weeks ago. But if anybody on this group would be interested in supporting that work in terms of advising on the sort of data and evidence that we should be using, and how we should be using that to inform the LNRS, then that would be very much appreciated. I believe that the national data set is available on an open portal. It is publicly available, and I think Karen might well have put that link into the chat. But if there are any further questions, perhaps drop me a line on the data front, that is, and we can pick up offline.
Okay, thanks, Liz. So I think there are a few other questions here which I think have had some answers, but just wondering, why is this going to be different from any other strategy? And I think, as Karen has said, is the idea that this is bottom up, and I think also that it should link in with the financing, because I guess the issue with all of this is, how does delivery actually happen? And unless it's linked to financing, I think it's hard to see how that can happen. So that's perhaps another aspect. Are there any other particular questions? People are asking, we are going to share the slides, so we will definitely do that. I can see a hand up, so why don't we go to the hand up? I can't see who it is though. So
it's me. It's actually me, Alexa.
Oh, it's you.
Sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to come in on the point about what will be different as well, because I completely relate to that feeling. I mean, we only did a biodiversity strategy 3 years ago, and I think Karen has addressed some of the differences in terms of the way in how it's being developed. But from my perspective, I think the other thing that is different to this is that, and maybe not so relevant to this discussion, but certainly I think worth pointing out, is one of the things that is very different is that there is now going to be a statutory requirement on our planning authorities to take account of the local nature recovery strategy. So our biodiversity strategy that we had in the county was previously very much advisory. Many of the authorities, although they recognised it, did not formally adopt it, and therefore it did not have a formal place in decision making and informing the things like local plans. But as a result of the planning reforms, there is now a statutory duty on local planning authorities to consider what is in their local nature recovery strategy. And as a result of the Environment Act's enhanced biodiversity duty, there is now a requirement on them to report in terms of how they are delivering and what they are doing to enhance nature. And one would hope that would also mean how they are helping to deliver the local nature recovery strategy through, for example, biodiversity net gain. So I completely understand maybe some of the hesitation and sort of pessimism about this, but if we get this right, and that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure our planning authorities are involved in its development as well, there is a real opportunity for this to genuinely make a difference where others previously have not done so.
About data sets, default by established. Yeah, national data sets are often informed or established by people on the ground, voluntary groups. If a national data suggests a biodiverse poor area may be due to lack of local groups rather than lack of biodiversity, how will we avoid assuming that absence of evidence is evidence of absence? I'm sorry, Liz, that might be you again. I'm just trying to see if I could lose your voice in one afternoon.
Excuse me. No, absolutely. And that's the same with the local data sets as well. All, you know, our species records are very much informed by local species, local surveying groups' actions and activities. All I can say is that that's something we're very well aware of. And obviously, when we are reviewing the data, for instance, particularly for say the species recovery priorities and also the habitat side of things, that we will have to bear that in mind. And that might be, you know, where we might consider putting some effort in to fill up some of that knowledge gaps potentially. I'm not quite sure how we would do that. That's not to say, again, I don't want anyone to think we're going to go out and start surveying, because we don't have neither the time nor the resources for that. But there are ways in which we might be able to sort of assess those gaps and to see whether those, like you say, whether that's a gap of effort as opposed to a gap of biodiversity. But like I say, that all of the evidence and data and mapping work is going to be overseen by a technical advisory group, and the species recovery work is going to be overseen by a broad network of all of our species recording groups. So I would hope that throughout, you know, all of those technical experts, that sort of concern and issue will be picked up.
A question here, will we be mapping habits under threat or risk? I think there was a similar question higher up about, you know, impact of housing development and things like that. How would we be addressing those?
Is that me again?
I feel most of them is going to be.
I'll just keep my camera.
We'll have you cloned
on. It would be easier, wouldn't it? Habitats under threat and risk. So I guess it depends under which way. So obviously there are habitats currently at risk, at threat through planned development, and that development that has already been identified as part of strategic housing allocations, for example, or other strategically significant projects such as Lower Thames Crossing and power stations and the like. So what we will be doing is mapping where those strategic projects are happening and identifying where that might conflict potentially with what we're trying to do as a local nature recovery strategy. But the LNRS will not be an opportunity for us to reverse decisions that have already gone before, but it will be an opportunity for us to direct future poor decisions, shall we say, away from areas where you know, development would be detrimental to biodiversity and to our you know, our aspirations to recover nature. I'm not sure whether that answers the question, but it will, you know, but I think the other question was, so that was the question about development. We'll be mapping habitats under threat at risk. So the other thing that we will be doing is looking to sort of, one of our priorities might be that we consider that, say, we have a particular resource of habitat that is nationally scarce or even locally scarce, but, you know, is significant, that we consider is at risk either from climate change or land use management or development, etc. We will be looking, so that might, you know, a priority might be that we want to do better to protect and restore and enhance and extend, if possible, that habitat. But I mean, these questions in terms of will you, it's, I suppose one of the things to put to say, no, we won't be mapping it. You will with us will be mapping it, because this is the whole point, and this is what Karen was saying about it being a locally led bottom up approach. Is we want you to tell us what your priorities are. And then when we know our priorities, we want you to tell us where those priorities would be best directed in terms of action in the county to deliver sort of the best benefits for nature. So it's, a lot of these questions are saying, will we do this and will we do that? And the answer, I guess, is yes, if you instruct us to.
And I think that probably addresses some of the questions about, how the mapping is to be done so that it's not biased or favouring, particular organisations. So I think, again, to reiterate, the idea is that the mapping will be basically a platform onto which the idea is that, where projects have already been done or whatever, that they are mapped. So that's why the challenge is to engage people, because obviously many farmers and landowners have already been involved for many years in activities, that we want to be able to capture that. So that's the real challenge here, rather than so that's why this engagement becomes so important with all of you.
Exactly, and it goes back to the point that I think Karen's made in the chat about not the usual suspects. If it's not to be biased, if it's not to be sort of led by the big NGOs, if it is actually going to really reflect what's needed at the local level and be informed by the local level, we can only do that if the local stakeholders, if the local level gets involved, which is why we have dedicated the majority of the grant that we were provided for this to supply officers that can go out and engage with those partners at the local level. So I suppose, again, the question being, how will we make sure that the map's not unbiased? Well, you will help us make sure it's not biased by making sure that as broad a spread of stakeholders and interested parties are feeding into it.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Just want to have a bit more of a discussion also then about establishing the land advice network, and really to get a sense from people on the call whether this is something that you see working, whether you've got any particular thoughts on what would make it most effective. I think Carol has confirmed in the chat that you meet sort of fortnightly on a Friday at 8:30, so that's a sort of model that works. Perhaps you tell us a little bit about that, Carol, how that works, if you unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah, lovely.
Okay, excellent. So basically it's a group of stakeholders that come together who are producers and growers of fresh food and fresh produce, and literally for 1 hour, 8:30 on every other Friday, whereby we discuss issues and problems and come up with resolutions and solutions, because that's the whole point of doing it. Very much an action focused type meeting, so not really there for moaning and whinging, but about actually coming up with solutions and finding the way forward. And it works really well. It's been going for just over two and a bit years now. So the beauty of it is that they're action orientated notes as opposed to being minutes. There's not long documentation. We invite various different organisations to join on a regular basis. So that might be an update from the NFU, for example, or other interested things that are going on in the county, in Kent and Medway. And the point is, if you don't attend or you're not able to attend a particular meeting, it's fine, because you've got the actions from that meeting and you know what's going on, you know where we're going, what direction it's going in, and it's about actually getting consensus and actually working together. The issue that growers and producers have in food, fresh food and horticulture, is that they have got a lot of requirements that are on them, whether that's sharing data for free or it's engaging in different initiatives that are going on. They just don't have the time, and it's very difficult to engage them. So actually having something where they've got a conduit or a funnel, i.e. they understand why it's important, what the aim of it is, how they're going to get there, what participation they may or may not need. And one of the roles that I play, I suppose, as chairing or leading it, if you want, is basically to nag to ensure that actually things that are important deadlines, to make sure that they don't miss out. And I think that's one of the things from what I've briefly understood, although there's a lot of information,
a lot to take in,
a lot of information, which would be very scary. Scary is probably the wrong word, but would actually be very difficult to disseminate with somebody that's very time poor. Is actually, okay, this is important for this reason. This is the information we need. Agree with it, don't agree with it, or suggest ways to move forward. And it's kind of that works really well with them. And as I say, it's whilst it's not compulsory, the fact that it's on very regularly and always on a fortnightly basis actually means that attendance is very strong. So yes, it's a multi-stakeholder type thing. As I say, my worry, my little bit of a concern about this, but that I think can be drawn out, is that this feels a lot of stuff. The information I've been shared is really welcomed, but this would not be shareable to those group of individuals just because of the fact that this time time constraints. So.
And I think that's why I think we need people like you to make sure that we break it down to the right kind of size and the way for people to understand it, and also why I'm thinking there might be a small advisory group. But yeah, I think I'm really, so for the others on the call, I'm thinking that this land advice network could meet the way Carol suggests, sort of fortnightly for an hour, Friday morning, but possibly not clashing with Carol's meeting, or Thursday morning, whatever, something like that.
That would be helpful. I do have a quick question though. I don't know if it's a silly question or anything, but one of the questions may come out of this is that basically that the data that the producers, growers, farmers, whoever it might be, may be sharing, a slight little just bit of a concern with some other bits that are going on in the background, is the data's actually owned by the individual organisations. So whether that be a grower business or it might be, some other sort of stakeholder, there is some value around the data that they actually have. And I understand the benefits of actually sharing the information of what we're trying to achieve. I'm not signed up to that, but we probably need a succinct little bullet that says, okay, the benefits for doing it.
Why would you want to do it? Yeah. And I'm sure
because there's value.
Yeah, not only be your growers that are thinking that, I'm sure there will be others who might have similar concerns. So yeah, I think these are all things. This is why, it's complex. Super, thank you. All right, so anybody else on the call got any thoughts, questions, suggestions on the creation of a land advice network? Anybody? So I'm just going to try something here of launching a poll. And can you see that? If you want to say whether or not you think it's something good thing, I just want to get a sense of whether this is something people are up for. Can you see that? Yeah.
It is working, Alexa. Have no fear.
Is it? Okay, I can't see anything though. What's happening on the?
So we currently have 30 responses.
Okay.
And 100% thumbs up.
Okay, good. Because I can't see the results. I clearly need to work on my polling, use of polling. Okay, so sounds like it might be something that most people are in favour of. Yes.
There is. So currently we're at 97% thumbs up.
Excellent. Good. Thank you all for. I'll work out how to see that later. Good.
Alexa, can I just say it might be worth, not wanting to put anyone on the spot, but anyone who did do a thumbs down, it would be really useful offline if you felt happy to drop us a line and tell us what your concerns are over it, because if you have those concerns, there's bound to be others that also will. So it'd be really useful to understand what it is that concerns you about getting involved.
Indeed, because we understand we want to make sure this would work for as many people as possible. So I have another one about whether or not you would value an in-person meeting. Can you see that one? Liz, since you seem to be able to see
Yes,
these.
it's there. It's working.
It's all good. Right. So this would be an in-person meeting. 12th of December is a date chosen just to give us a bit of time to get together. And it would probably be at the Marden Hockey and Cricket Club. And if we're very lucky, there may be some lunch involved as well. But it would be a chance really to go through some of this in more detail and really get stuck into understanding what's required and really just getting to understand what we need to on the LNRS.
Mm-hmm. I think it looks about a 42% yes. Well, actually, it's just flipped. So it's majority to as a maybe.
Okay.
For meeting in person. So.
Okay, well, we'll see if that is something. And are there any particular preferences for last thing I'm going to do is launch poll for preferences on day meetings, and is that launched?
Yep, that's
there we go. Which day you would like to meet if you have a preference, and then on the second one there's also what sort of time of day would suit you. This would be for a sort of regular online fortnightly meeting. Okay. Okay. Are we doing Liz?
Yep, people are just filling that in. And it looks like there's not a clear winner on that one.
Okay. Well, I will just pick a date, a day and time then. If you, that's probably all I can do. Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much. I realise that's an awful lot of information to take in from everybody. Just before I draw this to a close, I just pause to see if there's any other questions or comments anybody would like to make. Yeah, that cup of tea calling.
Just to say, Alexa, you know, if anyone does have any questions, there is the project email address. Please drop any questions through to that, and then we'll get back to you.
Oh, well, and Chris, I think
no, I don't know. I've hovered over that, and that's an accidental hand. I'm trying to get rid of it. Sorry.
Oh, okay, Decky.
It's worth mentioning as well, Alexa, that we are formulating a resources section on our website for landowners, farmers and managers. And there's also going to be an FAQ document that is in the process of being put together now. So we will take all of these into account in our FAQs and hopefully give you some more answers.
Indeed, definitely worth mentioning that. So yes, and here just some last steps here. So in terms of sharing that, just as Rachel said, but you will get this all in the slides. But I will send out an invitation for the in-person meeting and gauge what level of interest there is, and set up some online meetings. If you would like to volunteer for the smaller working group, technical advice group, I'd anticipate that being another hour fortnightly, so hopefully not too onerous. But with all of these things, if there's nothing to discuss, I promise you we will not meet unless you want to have a social, which is fine, but I'm sure you're all too busy for that. As Rachel said, we are creating a resources page on the internet site, and it has, for example, got the blogs from DEFRA. It's got the most recent one about how BNG will link to local nature recovery strategies on there. And as Liz said, here's the general email, but you all have my email addresses, so please do get in touch. And if you would like to have a follow-up discussion, I'd be very glad to speak to you. So thank you all for your time, and have a very good afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.